Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Joshua and Jen, for just the phenomenal presentations to kick things off today. So let's get started with an introduction to the OpenMRS product, both where we've come from and where we are now. But first, it helps me to know what folks already know. So if you could please kindly either use the link that I just shared in the chat, or better yet, go ahead and join us here. Let's get this started. All right, so if you have a cell phone, you should be able to simply scan this QR code if you'd prefer to use a different device than the one you're watching this presentation on. And we will go ahead and get started. I see 4 people have joined the icebreaker activity. And in case you're looking for a quick link, we'll repost that in the chat right now. Here is the other link. 8 people have joined. All right, well, while others are 12, excellent. They keep rising, that's great. Well, while people continue to join, and here's the QR code in case you still need it. My first question for everyone is, what do you already know about the OpenMRS product or software? Anything in particular that comes to your mind? And here we've got a screenshot visible of the new OpenMRS version 3. HIV care, standards, demo, open, good responses. Open source, health, indeed. Standards, interesting. Free interoperable antenatal care, mobile. This is very helpful, everyone. EMR, that's right, electronic medical record. I see malaria, I see centralized, I see data model, I see fire standard, phenomenal. TB. Great, thanks everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick screenshot before we move on to the next one. Wow, so much change. All right, let's go ahead to the next one. So today, what are you hoping to learn about OpenMRS in general or version 3 in particular? This one I'll give people a few moments here to think about, because there's a number of example topics that we're going to cover today, and I'm curious to see if folks are more interested in some things than other things. Great, thanks to the 15 people who've already done it. Keep going, everybody. Okay, fantastic. Looks like we've had 50 participants. That's really helpful. Thank you so much, everyone. And please continue to do that if you would like to. But these help me understand moving forward how we can make these presentations even more informative for you. While we're moving ahead today with this product-based presentation, please feel welcome to put your questions in the chat. If there's anything we don't cover today, I will try to address that promptly in future sessions together. All right, so as you already got a sneak preview, some of the objectives for this session today, we're going to cover what the OpenMRS product means for you, whether you are a user, an implementer or admin, a community member, and or a developer. You might be all 4 of these things. So we've got a lot to go through. Let's get started at the simplest level together. Let's start with OpenMRS from a user's perspective. Now, while many folks have identified successfully that OpenMRS was designed for all kinds of environments, one of the misconceptions about OpenMRS is that it was only ever meant for HIV, AIDS, or HIV-related care. And actually, that's not the case. We've seen OpenMRS, and we still see OpenMRS being used in many kinds of care around the world. And these are some amazing examples, whether it's general maternity care or community health, primary health care. Let's get started with a quick video. I'm going to go ahead and share my computer sound, and please just comment in the chat if anyone's having issues hearing it.
Countries can tailor OpenMRS to suit the needs of facilities with different use cases. Here, we explore a simple OpenMRS reference application that serves staff and patient needs at a HIV outpatient clinic. When a patient visits a clinic, registration clerks use the registration module to look up or create a new patient record, instantly viewable by all other staff. Next, nurses record vital signs directly in the patient's record for the physician. With histories available in more legible, digital format than through paper forms, providers have more time to interact with patients. Physicians record observation and use data displayed on the patient charts to inform lab requests, diagnoses, and prescriptions. In this way, OpenMRS supports clinical decision-making. Drop-down menus with fixed options can result in more consistent and accurate data. This decreases the potential for incomplete information and medical errors. OpenMRS is primarily used on desktop and laptop computers. Some other health workers also use OpenMRS on tablets. Many OpenMRS installations use a local area network with data stored on a facility-based server. This allows data collected at the facility to be safely stored, protected digitally, and instantly retrievable. Countries add functionality to the OpenMRS platform using any of the approximately 40 foundational add-on modules such as the data exchange module or the reporting module. Reports provide insights into population health that paper registers cannot. Countries can also add functionality with their own customized modules in response to specific use cases. Examples of customized modules include pharmacy and laboratory management. These customized modules are often added to the OpenMRS community codebase to be reused by other implementers across different countries to extend and install individually or as a distribution. OpenMRS is made more powerful and useful through connections with other systems, including other global goods such as DHIS2, OpenHIE, OpenAlice, and ComCare. OpenMRS modules enable these connections by leveraging standards such as FHIR and concept dictionaries such as SAIL. For instance, OpenMRS connects with DHIS2 to support aggregate reporting of national health indicators so national program managers can make decisions about health policy and care guidelines. With reliable electronic medical record systems, improving the health of millions of people becomes possible. It enables improved data use to guide patient care, inform public health policy and programs, and supporting monitoring of progress towards goals. With OpenMRS, information is care.
We have customized it as Uganda EMR. It is mainly in the HIV clinics. The mission is to have client information securely captured electronically and shared, but in a safe way. It has helped to reduce the double entries. Programs are able to tell which patients are receiving care from which facilities without having to lose them along their journey of care. This has also been supported by other mobile-based applications.
Thousands of healthcare clinics are using OpenMRS to provide improved healthcare to millions of patients in over 45 countries, from Nepal to Mozambique to Peru.
Okay, we don't need to watch everything of that right now, but I did share the link to the video in the chat, and I will share a link to these slides after in case you want to rewatch or go deeper into anything.
Countries can...
Sorry. All right. So we've just had a quick look together of what it can look like to use OpenMRS version 2. And one of the reasons we did that is because we heard from a lot of you that you really wanted some examples about how to use the product as a user. One other application of OpenMRS that we often don't talk about, but has been really critical over the last almost 20 years of our history, is healthcare research. In fact, if you look online, there are a stunning number of publications that have used OpenMRS to either research healthcare quality ideas, treatment changes, all the way through to open source machine learning or security and so on. So that's been a really amazing application in the background. One question we got in many folks' forums was, where can I practice using the OpenMRS EMR? And while you might already know the historic demo link, the new one is, and we'll look at it together today so you can use it later, but it's o3.openmrs.org. And as usual, the sample username is admin, and the password is admin123. We're going to keep going. Oh, and one fun thing that one of our community organizations worked on last year is that OpenMRS 3 can now be embedded in Moodle and other learning platforms. I know some of you are thinking about how to use OpenMRS for trainings, whether that's for students or for folks in the field, and it is now possible to integrate into your e-learning tools. What do you need to know as an admin? I am going quickly, don't worry, we're going to come back to a lot of this. Well, what you may have seen in the past is this huge OpenMRS administrator's user interface, and I've actually got it open here. You can see that you can do all kinds of things like managing your users and their privileges, their roles. So for example, here in our test instance, oops, I got logged out, that's okay. It's the usual credentials. We can look at our different users that we might have. We can manage their roles, their privileges, alerts that we want folks to see, and so on. We can also look at different things going on in our system, and we're going to come back to that. But the main thing to know is that your admins of OpenMRS have access to all of this user interface to help them manage different types of things going on in the background. One thing we've really tried with OpenMRS 3 is to keep this pretty consistent so that if you are used to using this administration panel, that is not changing significantly at this time. What should you know as a community member of the OpenMRS global community? Well, we're going to walk through a couple key components about the product now, and we're going to look deeper at OpenMRS 3 together. All right, the components, since this was perhaps the most requested or interested feature in the survey we just did together. So the first thing to know about OpenMRS is the platform, or the core or backend as it's sometimes called. You can think of this as the brain of the application. This is the one that knows what's going on, that controls the database and so on. It's also got a dictionary, and this was a really forward-thinking thing that the original architects of OpenMRS did. They said, you know, we need a data model that the brain can use to think, and we also need a dictionary because, hey, we all have to learn vocabulary when we're growing up, and so does a medical record system. It needs to know what to call asthma or diabetes, and it needs a code for all of those things. And so that's one of the reasons that OpenMRS works so well for different condition areas, is because it was always so flexible, not just for HIV, but any condition can be encoded in its brain. Next up, we have the API layer. If you're familiar with APIs, these are a way, there's different standards as well. We do support both REST and FHIR API. But if you're not familiar with APIs, you can think of this as a way that the brain communicates back and forth with the rest of the body of the application. And when we talk about that body, we often mean the user interface, or what the user is seeing and clicking on and looking at with the colors and the buttons and the text. We also call that the front end. And so if the front end wants something to happen, let's say you click a button, a pretty colored button, that sends a call to the brain to help it with that action. That's what the API is doing. So there's the face of the application, the front end. Now, you will often hear us talking about the ref app. which just means reference application or our demo. And all this is all of these things bundled together into a package for you that you could take and use and customize and configure for your needs. In fact, the Ref app is really the product where all of these components come together and all our hard work together as a community can shine. And in fact, it's the Ref app or reference application that you're seeing when you go to those demo links that I shared earlier. Now, in the past, one of the amazing other architectural thoughts about OpenMRS that they realized early on was there are going to be people who want their brains to learn additional information or have extra skills. And so this thing called the OpenMRS add-ons was created to help with this. And we call these OpenMRS modules or OMODs. This is an example in the version 2 Ref app, specifically version 2.11. You can see that all of these additional modules were added to help the brain learn new things. And in fact, if we go to the admin panel and we go to our module management, I get a little bit lost from time to time. Here we go, manage modules. You can see here all of these additional modules that have been added to help the brain learn new things without crashing the system. This was always a really important part of making OpenMRS flexible. So for example, you can even see that over time when new features were developed for the OpenMRS brain to learn, things like cohorts or queuing, those were created as add-on modules. And it's in this add-on directory where we usually publish those modules as well as on GitHub. For example, one of our most popular modules is the address hierarchy modules, because it turns out that capturing where someone lives can be really tricky if they don't have an address that you can just search on Google Maps. And that's a good example of an OMOD or OpenMRS module. All right, let's go back to the main event here. Now, the question that a lot of you have been waiting for, what should you know as a community member about the latest version of the OpenMRS software version 3, or what we like to call O3? Well, first of all, let's step back in time together and look back at OpenMRS 2 and what happened. This is OpenMRS 2. You've seen it in a couple of the presentations today. And as others have mentioned, we've gone through a big change before. Some of you might remember OpenMRS version 1, which looked like this. And it was in 2012 that as a community, we changed the face of our reference application, the front end, to look like this, OpenMRS version 2. Although we didn't call it version 2 very often, just OpenMRS Ref app. Now, a couple challenges with this were the technology stack used. Some of the technology stack used in this in 2012 was deprecated pretty quickly in the software industry. And it also wasn't ideally set out for point of care use. So even though we started out as being highly modular with this platform in the background and the optional front end or face of the application, so this was, if you rewind time and look back at 2012, this was the vision that organization A or B or C, organization 1 here, had the same platform and reference face interface as everyone else, and they might have their own custom modules to add on additional functionality to that brain, and that was fine. The idea was that organization 2 would have the same platform, a similar reference face, and so would organization number 3, and so on and so on. But over time, for good and reasonable reasons, different organizations needed to significantly change the face, that front end of the application. And that meant that even though we were sharing the same brain and the same back end, our face was changing over time. And in fact, the technical difference became very significant. So much so that when COVID hit in 2020, this was our situation. Here you're looking at 6 screenshots. These are all screenshots of OpenMRS patient summaries. Someone asked about Bomni earlier. Here's an example from Bomni. You can see how different all of these are. Even though these are all using the OpenMRS brain or platform, they're all using a different user interface. Why did we get into such a state? What this meant was that when we were trying to quickly develop features to deal with COVID, such as COVID immunization guidelines encoded in the software, we actually had to duplicate efforts at a global scale because we were not able to share front-end features across our community. And one case study in particular shows this, how we got here really well. Ampath in Kenya is actually where OpenMRS first was created, as Jen explained. And at that time, it was using the community version of OpenMRS. But eventually, their users said, you know, we don't want to do historical data entry anymore. We want to use the record system at the point of care when the clinician is seeing the patient. So Ampath said, all right, we're still going to use the OpenMRS brain, but we are going to make our own custom version of the user interface. And that worked well enough. In fact, Ampath grew to be one of the largest point of care OpenMRS implementations, with over 3 million patient encounters being logged live time as patients were seen. And in fact, this was how I personally first learned about OpenMRS many years ago. I was so amazed by the nurses and other clinicians who would grab me by the shirt to come and show me their medical record system. And having been a nurse myself, I had never met any clinicians who wanted so badly to show their medical record system. They were very, very excited about the impact that the system had on their patient care. But there was trouble in paradise. This approach could not be scaled because Ampath's main job was patient care, not only software development. And this meant that as this system became more and more popular with their NGO's staff network, there were not enough developers in their team to continue supporting their own custom software. And so accidentally, by creating the Ampath medical record system just to meet their own needs, they realized they became alone. The software was too specific to them and could not be reused by anyone else. And so, in fact, it was some of this team who co-founded OpenMRS version 3, because they said, actually, even though we're really proud of what we accomplished, it's wasteful and unsustainable for us to continue this siloed, duplicated OpenMRS development. So we needed a new way of doing things in terms of how we develop the user interface of OpenMRS. We could no longer duplicate efforts like this. And so we started looking at a way that would allow many organizations to work together with a shared user interface, with modern technology that people are learning in computer science programs today, and so on. And here we enter into OpenMRS 3. This is OpenMRS 3. This is the next version of OpenMRS. In fact, when significant resources were invested by different community organizations, they started by investing in tablet portrait mode design before going back to desktop, which was one of the weaknesses in the past for OpenMRS, was that we hadn't had a lot of tablet-focused responsiveness in the past, and that comes with, that responsiveness comes with O3. Let's have a deeper look at O3 together. One of the things to know about OpenMRS 3, unlike OpenMRS 2, where it was a little bit difficult in the user interface to see the whole kind of patient chart and the different components of the patient chart, this is now easier to see in OpenMRS 3, kind of like tabs in a book. In addition, though, we know that so many different programs will have a particular site or a unit or a ward say to them, hey, for our program, we really need to see information in a customized way. And so with OpenMRS 3, you can also further configure any kind of clinical or program or site-specific view. So for example, if your clinician said to you, hey, for our diabetes patients, we really just want to see 1, 2, 3, ABC, you can configure that as well. Let's have a deeper look at this example. In this screenshot, how was this actually built using what we call O3 apps or widgets? Well, the most important thing we had to agree on so that we didn't end up in that duplicated world again was the skeleton, the navigation conventions. So you can see in that example, there are a couple of skeleton pieces that are shared across OpenMRS 3 applications, like the navigation, the header, the workspace, and so on. Now, what's important, the reason that having that shared skeleton is so important is because now we get to add the organs, the applications. So these different applications are JavaScript typically, although they don't have to be. They're, they do need to be. They're JavaScript applications. We typically use React, although you can support others such as Angular and so on. These are micro front ends, which basically means mini apps. And you can plug these mini apps into your OpenMRS system. So say, for example, you and your team really like how the OpenMRS reference application has the patient summary with some vital signs, but you want your labs to look a little different. So you build your own lab app and you add that front-end widget or app in, no problem. Let's say you like what organization B over there did with immunizations. You can take their work and add it in too, no problem, so long as we share the same design patterns. Now, it's because of sharing those patterns and also this micro front-end technology that allows us to sandbox those apps, that is what has enabled us to move forward by having many squads and groups that you're going to learn about more tomorrow in our community model, creating many different features at once, or maintaining or adjusting or evolving different features at once. And that is the benefit of our web app approach. This has some pretty big strategic implications for decision makers, whether you are a project lead or a ministry lead or a donor, for example. In the past, many systems got kind of stuck with the HIV system versus the NCD system versus some other donor's system. Well, now there's endless content possibilities, meaning you can add in mini apps for HIV, for NCD, for whatever else you need. And one of our community goals is to make sure that you have the starter kit that you need in the reference application, the ref app, to build or configure what else you need. So it's this professional and shared user experience design and the plug and play microfront architecture that makes this possible. All right, let's have a quick look at a demo before we go on further. Since you've seen a demo of OpenMRS 2, let's have a quick look at OpenMRS 3, and we'll look at a few other things together. This one's a little bit older. All right, thanks for listening to that really quick walkthrough, but let's actually open things up together here. And as you have the links that you will need, we can look at it further together. Well, this is OpenMRS 3, and bear with me because I've got my huge display screen here, so I'll just zoom in a little bit. There are many different views that folks might want, which is all possible thanks to this layout. So for example, we do know that in some sites, having the appointments view as the home page is really mission critical. And for example, that is available. Well, let's look at the patient chart really quickly here. I'm going to grab a sample patient. We can actually see he already has a visit going on. Here's George. Your patient summary page is fully configurable. For example, if your users prefer to see conditions at the top, you can move that around in your configuration. In fact, most of this is driven by JSON configuration files. Vitals and biometrics, medication ordering, test results viewing. I think one of my favorites is being able to see the trend view for different lab results, and so on. All right, that was a very quick overview. Happy to show more. And in fact, we're going to see a couple more demos shortly together here. All right. Next. So one example just recently of how these mini apps can be used to build the EMR and improve it iteratively together as a community was when we recently had some folks step forward and say, hey, we use the decision support flags a lot in version 2. Can we please have them in version 3? And we were able to build that with a very, very small squad and add that in relatively quickly. All right. If you're thinking, well, I'm already used to using O2, how would I get started with O3? Here's a very quick summary of what you would need to be thinking about. The first step is to go to Docker and grab the Dockerized applications. We've really tried to make the reference application a one-stop shop for you to start from. And the SDK, if you're used to using the SDK, there's also new tooling in the SDK available just from within the last 6 months that will guide you through using OpenMRS 3. And I'll give you some links that you can use to move forward with. The next step is to adjust things how you want. You might want to change some of the coloring, the logo, the ordering of things, and that is certainly encouraged. Forms we're going to talk about next. You will also need to do a gap analysis of any custom features that you've built that only you and your team are using. And you'll need to, well, we encourage you to join the O3 ecosystem. There are many other organizations who are currently trying to work together to create extra functionality. And again, we're going to learn more about that tomorrow. All right, I'm now going to show you one other exciting thing that comes with OpenMRS 3, and that is the form builder. We've heard many times in the past about how building and maintaining forms, it would be great if some of the more clinical people could do that instead of only having to depend on developers. Let's have a look at how the OpenMRS 3 form builder enables someone like me, a nurse, to be able to build a form without knowing how to code.
O3 form builder, and I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of creating a form. I'm going to click on this create new form button, go to this interactive builder tab, and then start building. So this is a basic patient assessment form. I'm going to provide a description for that, and then I'm going to add the one page called assessment details. Save that. You can see the form getting dynamically built out on the side here. Cool. So I am going to add a bunch of sections, a vital sign section, a reason for visit section, and also a consent to treat section. Cool. So we see the sections padded out. Let's start fleshing these out by adding questions. So the first question is going to be about the temperature, and then it needs a unique ID. So I'll go with temperature in Celsius. And it's of type OBS, and this is a number field. So beta max values 35 and 40, that seems good. And then I'm going to search for a working concept, temperature in degrees Celsius. Hit save, and we have our first question. At any point, we can go to this form preview and see how the form looks as we build it out. So that's looking good. I am going to add something for collecting the systolic blood pressure. It needs a unique ID. I'll use systolic BP. Thank you. Go to OBS. And because this is a number field, I'll select number. I'm going to worry about these ones later, but for now, I'm going to say systolic blood pressure. Hit save. Cool. How about diastolic then? If I do this, I go to enter a unique ID, use diastolic.
So in the interest of time, given we're starting to run out of time, I'm going to jump ahead in this demo.
Yeah, it's free text field as well, so we're going to use other for this. Yeah, there we go. Save. And already you can see that our form is taking shape. We have a bunch of JSON code written out on the side here, which is looking good. So I am just going to go to this preview tab. Yep, I can see that my form's looking good. I can enter values.
All right, so he's created his form, and now this is Dennis Keegan, one of our front-end engineering leads.
And open up my form. I can see that it opens in edit mode, which means I can, from this page, modify various aspects of the form. I can go back into this interactive builder tab and say, maybe rename this field, this section to say encouragement, like so. And all the changes get propagated to this preview tab, as you can see. So that's cool. At this point, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with my form. So the next step would be to publish this form so that I can make it available to my front end. When I hit this publish form button, all that does is it publishes a form. This makes it so that if you go into O3 and pull open the clinical forms tab, you should be able to see this form from this UI. And here it is, basic patient assessment form.
So there you have it. In less than 4 minutes, we've demoed building a whole new form. And that is one of the benefits that comes out of the box with OpenMRS 3. All right. A quick note with OpenMRS 3, here's another good before and after example. Here's 2 of our active community member organizations, AMPATH and Partners in Health. Here's how their user interfaces looked before OpenMRS 3. You can see how different they were. And now with OpenMRS 3, they might change some of their coloring a bit. They might change some of their names of what they call their different sections and so on. But they are able to share work with each other in a way they weren't able to before. All right, what does this mean for you if you are a developer? I can see a lot of great questions in the chat about different technology stacks, for example. So there are 2 things that if you are a developer, I can't emphasize enough, you should have a look at. And in fact, if you're a project manager or business analyst, you should bookmark these as well. I'm going to type the links for you now in the chat so you can bookmark these for yourself ASAP. The first one is the OpenMRS 3 manual. We've put a lot of work into having a single place you can go instead of getting scared by our whole wiki. There's one link you can go to learn everything you might need about how to use and set up OpenMRS 3 as a developer. If you have questions about, say, translation as a business analyst or developer, that is answered in there as well as things like configuring your branding, etc. The next one, which is so important to OpenMRS 3 working for us long-term, is our pattern library. Ultimately, OpenMRS 3 will only be successful for us if we all share the same user interface patterns. Otherwise, we'll end up back where we were when COVID happened. The UX pattern library will show you how we recommend styling different things that may not be immediately obvious. We're using a design system called Carbon Design, but general design systems often don't have some of the complex medical information structuring that you might run into as a developer or BA or designer or product manager, such as how we recommend structuring your drugs in your OpenMRS 3 application. So please do bookmark those and have a look. And we're excited to hear your questions and feedback. We're actually actively looking for feedback on that documentation. I'm recognizing that we're running out of time, so I'm going to just touch on one more thing, and then perhaps we can come back to some of this tomorrow. But since we've received some technical stack questions, here's how the tech stack of OpenMRS version 2 or RefApp version 2 compares to RefApp version 3. They're both using platform version 2. They're both using the same brain, but you can see the main changes to the front-end technologies. Here in OpenMRS 2, you'll see where we're using JSPs, which became an outdated technology fairly quickly after 2012, as well as a few other components, whereas now we're much more focused on React.js with micro front-end frameworking, and particularly through ESM modules. Folks have been asking about databases. MySQL, Postgres, and MariaDB are all supported by the OpenMRS platform version 2 and above. I will share a link to these slides now so that folks can have a look at everything we've covered today, and looking forward to your questions in the chat. Thanks so much, Jen and Joshua.